Again, welcome. My name is Nick Agulia. I'm one of the regional vice presidents with Equitable Advisors. And today we're going to be talking about the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide. So first, the point of this presentation of the Share Your Love Discussion Guide is really to help prepare people for the inevitable as well as the difficult conversations and discussions. This is one topic that many people find difficult to talk about, especially with those that are closest to them. The Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide is intended to help initiate an open and thoughtful dialogue with family as you plan for the future, and especially plan for how you want your final wishes or requests to be honored. It's more than just a simple list of instructions, however. It covers many topics, such as where do you find important documents, key people or key contacts in our life, who should care for loved ones and minors. And these are decisions that can be relatively complicated, and they're decisions that have to be made. Before we get started, just a quick important note. So any information we discuss today is meant as informational purposes only. We always encourage people to seek out a licensed financial and fiduciary advisor, such as ourselves with Equitable, as well as a licensed tax advisor and or an accountant and an attorney to help with the legal matters associated with estate planning as well. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about the importance of estate planning. We're going to talk more specifically about the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide, and we're going to talk about, after completion, what are those next steps. So let's start with the importance of estate planning. So why should we take the time to plan out our estate? Many people think that they can wait. They think that it's something that they don't need to worry about until maybe they're much older. The odds of anything happening to them are relatively low, so why talk about it or bother doing it now? Others think that maybe they don't have enough assets. They haven't accumulated enough to warrant sitting down and coming up with an estate plan. The fact is that, unfortunately, some people maybe in our lives that we know as well, may have already faced, or at some point in the future may face, unexpected illnesses or tragic events. Having a plan in place will help ensure the transfer of assets as well as the care of our loved ones. And no matter the extent of the assets, there's two options. Either one, you get to choose how things play out, or two, the courts will choose for you. So when faced with those two options, I feel most people, if not everybody, would much rather choose the destiny as opposed to allowing the courts to make those decisions. So the two important goals of doing an estate plan, what is the outcome or the end game of this? The purpose of the process is really to help establish or create the legal documents that are required that will help to guarantee that your assets or your wishes are fulfilled. But also the process of reading through and having a discussion with our friends or family members, loved ones, this helps to guide the conversation. It helps to facilitate a tough discussion, and it helps us to really start off thinking about things that maybe up to this point in time we've not wanted to think about. So staying on tune with the importance of estate planning, if you have not completed an estate plan or an estate planning documents prior to a death or a disability, as I mentioned before, the courts will ultimately decide on the distribution of your assets. Your estate's going to have to pay large amounts of attorney fees, administrative costs. The legal process can be cumbersome. It takes a long time. 6 months to 2-3+ years. I've seen this process take when things are not planned properly. If you've not gone through the estate planning process and you have not made your wishes clear to your loved ones, I go back to the court's going to decide where your assets get distributed to, who cares for any minor children, which again may cause conflict within our families, something that inevitably comes with these types of lack of planning decisions. And it's something that can very easily be prevented and avoided just by the proper conversation and discussion proactively. There can also be significant tax consequences if we do not plan out our estate properly. So making sure that any assets that we have, again, no matter the amount, are passed along to our heirs, our beneficiaries, in the most efficient manner is a very, very important part of this process as well. So one example that may not be relatable to most people on this call, but something that we're probably a situation at least that we might be familiar with, is the artist formerly known as Prince, when Prince passed. So Prince passed away in 2016, and after his death, we learned that he did not have a will, and he left behind a little bit more than a little red Corvette. Therefore, the state was left to divvy up his assets, an estimated $300 million among his siblings and half-siblings. And to make things more difficult during the process, a federal inmate who was currently incarcerated claimed to have been Prince's son and only heir. After 2 years of fighting and millions of dollars in legal fees and bankers' fees, nothing had been paid out and nothing had been resolved at that point. So as you can see from this kind of extreme example I get, but it's meant to illustrate that not having clearly spelled out our wishes, not having those legally binding declarations and documents, it can lead to a great deal of conflict, whether it's an extreme situation like this one, or even whether it's just our own personal situations. So the purpose of the Share Your Love discussion guide. So simply put, the Share Your Love family discussion guide is really, it's a book. It's a booklet that we can send out to anybody. So if anybody is interested, or if you have not received one in the past, or just you want another one, let me know after the call today. I'll have my information, contact information at the end again. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. We can mail you out a Share Your Love discussion guide. And again, what it is a booklet. It allows you kind of step by step to go through the processes that we are currently talking about now. And it allows you to start to write things down, or if it's, maybe with an older family member, allows you to help facilitate the conversation with them to start to help them to put their thoughts down or their wishes down on paper. So the Share Your Love family discussion guide, what it's meant to do is, again, it's meant to help people to write down or extract information from loved ones in really 4 key areas. It's going to be key contacts and advisors, financial information and assets, important documents, information arrangements, and then ethical will and family history. And we'll talk more about all of these as well. So key contacts and advisors. So just some memory joggers, some things to think about is your financial and asset advisors. So when going through the booklet, we would want to list out who are maybe our financial professionals we work with, who are our attorneys, if we have any. Do we have an accountant that we work with? Maybe brokers, insurance advisors. Key contacts, these could be maybe individuals, friends, or family members that we want contacted if something were to happen to us. Medical professionals, pharmacies. Remember, these documents, the importance of this estate planning is not just in case somebody passes away. It's also in the event that somebody becomes disabled or maybe incapacitated, still with us, and still has the need for some of these services. It is still also important to make sure that we're talking through those scenarios and conversations as well. And furthermore, something that always gets forget about, but in the digital world that we live in, digital assets, passwords are also very important. Individuals who might have credit card statements or online banking, the only way maybe to get access to some of that information would be if those passwords were written down somewhere, if those were disclosed. Next is financial information. So working with a financial advisor, a lot of this stuff I always tell clients that I work with is that if, God forbid, something ever happened, let your family members know, or we put in the booklet to have them reach out to me. a good advisor, a thorough advisor, is one that would have record of most, if not all, of this information to help make things a lot easier for whoever was left behind as well. But some of those things we'd be talking about would be investment accounts, retirement accounts, pensions, things such as maybe IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, Social Security benefits, maybe federal or military benefits, bank accounts, any debts that are owed. Personal properties, personal property that we own, maybe personal property that we're part owners with. I'll come across a lot of people who, especially with our proximity to Canada, who maybe own property in Canada or own property in a different state jointly with siblings. Debts, liabilities. Do we have any mortgages, home equity line of credits, debts that are out there still? Credit card information. So again, just some memory joggers on all different things that it would be important for your loved ones or whomever would be helping to, for lack of better words, pick up the pieces for them to know about. Insurance and other benefits. There is a website. Most are probably familiar with it, but the website is the New York State Department of Unclaimed Funds. You can actually just Google unclaimed funds or New York State unclaimed funds. And what this is it is a website that New York State hosts, and it's for individuals who are owed monies, but those individuals cannot be tracked down. And if you ever take the time to kind of scroll through it, one of the things you'll find, one of the biggest outstanding amounts of money is life insurance payments, meaning somebody passed away, they had life insurance, their family didn't know they had the life insurance in place. Therefore, instead of the money going to the intended beneficiaries, it ended up getting turned over to the state and is just sitting there in limbo in an account that the state's controlling. So it is, you would not believe the amount of times that happens. So making sure, again, that we list out all of the insurance policies that we have. And this can be everything from maybe the small $1,000 one that we get through a credit union that we signed up with, all the way through maybe something that's provided to us through our union, or something that maybe we purchase privately through an Equitable or another financial institution as well. So we're going to take a deeper dive now into the actual documents and how they work and the importance of them. So to kind of start off, some of the documents and things we should be aware of, your estate planning documents, we're going to focus much more on that. But estate planning documents like your will, living will, power of attorneys, accounts, deeds, and titles to property, family forms, marriage licenses, maybe divorce paperwork, birth certificates, adoption paperwork, citizenship paper. A lot of this information is required and it's needed even after somebody passes away to help facilitate the transfer of assets or accounts. So having these documents readily accessible for our loved ones, whoever is left behind, it is going to make their lives a lot easier and a lot less stressful. Anybody who's ever gone through a situation like this knows the emotional stresses of losing a loved one. When you add on the financial burden and having to figure all of this stuff out and not having everything organized, it unfortunately makes things a little bit worse to add the additional burden on top of the emotions that we're currently, normally facing. So again, we're going to hone in more on the estate planning documents and the importance of them. So breaking them down, what most people are familiar with, probably the most popular, the most important, arguably, is a will. And a will serves two purposes. A will names first who would raise or care for any minor children if we passed away at the point in time where we still had minor children in our household. The second thing, though, that a will does is it names who would inherit, who would receive any tangible assets and or who would receive any assets that do not have a beneficiary attached to them. One of the most important things to know with estate planning is beneficiaries supersede a will. Beneficiaries supersede a will, and what that means in English is if you have a 403b, if you have your pension, and on your pension or your 403b, you just forgot to change the beneficiary. Maybe the beneficiary is an ex-spouse, or maybe it's a deceased family member, or maybe it was a friend from when you first set it up 10, 15, 20 years ago. Even if you have an updated will that states your wishes, whatever the beneficiary is listed on those other accounts, that is going to trump, that is going to supersede, that is going to pay out that way. They will not recognize what the will says if your beneficiaries are conflicting. So very, very important to make sure that when we're going through this process, if you're ever meeting with a financial advisor to review or to change things around or set up new accounts, one of the first things I always do with people is we do a beneficiary review. We want to make sure that their beneficiaries are set up properly and they are set up to match what their will says. Next is a personal property disposal list. This is not a legal document, to clarify. This is more of an instruction list that can be included, though, with your will. And a personal property disposal list would be for somebody that maybe has family heirlooms, or maybe they have some tangible items that they want to give to a family member, or they want to make sure that doesn't just get sold at an estate sale. And maybe it's something, again, like a wedding ring. Maybe it's a wedding dress that's been passed down for generations. Some of the examples you see on the screen here, maybe a piano, or another piece of jewelry, right? I've seen many cases where there was an item maybe brought back from World War I or World War II that's been in the family that, the story behind that item, the intention is for that to get passed on and that story to live on through the generations. Those are things that people don't always think about. Those are some of the items, though, that we would want to include in this personal property disposal list. Not to be mistaken with a regular will is a living will. And a living will is something that I'll say the majority of people do not have. A living will is a written statement that would kind of express your desires, what you would want to happen medically in certain situations. So in a second, we'll talk about a healthcare proxy. Most people are familiar with a healthcare proxy. Either you've done one through your attorney, or you may have just done one through your doctor's office. But a healthcare proxy just names somebody that can make decisions on your behalf if you're unable to. The healthcare proxy doesn't name what your wishes are in certain scenarios. So a living will is going to be that legal document that allows you to state in advance, based off of specific circumstances, how you would want your healthcare to play out under various circumstances. It takes a lot of emotional burden off somebody. If anybody's ever been a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy for somebody, and had to make tough decisions, you know what I'm talking about in terms of how hard that is. I've been in that position. It's very challenging. So having that living will in place does alleviate some of that because it has already stated how the treatment would play out. Following suit, so the healthcare proxy, which is also known as the medical power of attorney. Again, it's the document, as I just mentioned, that allows somebody to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. But again, I reiterate, it does not specify what you would want those decisions to be. It is solely up to that healthcare proxy then to make the call. Then there's a durable general power of attorney, more commonly just referred to as a power of attorney, right? But a durable general power of attorney, that gives the authority to a friend, a family member, an individual to make financial decisions on your behalf in the event that you are unable to make them on your own. The power of attorney is only relevant. It only has power if an individual is still with us, but either incapacitated or just unable to make financial decisions on their own. When an individual passes away, the power of attorney ceases to exist, and that's where the will takes over. And whoever is listed as the executor of the will, they would then assume the powers at that point in time. Almost always, the power of attorney would be the same person as the executor in the will. Other considerations are final arrangements, right? Are there things that are important to us, right, that we want? Is somebody donating maybe their body to science? There's paperwork. Here in Buffalo, we have the University of Buffalo. A lot of individuals I work with, those are their wishes, are to donate their body when they're no longer here to that. There are legal documents that need to be completed in advance for that, and the family needs to know about it so that those wishes, again, can be fulfilled. Is there a family funeral home? Was anything pre-planned? More and more we're finding these days that individuals are going out and pre-planning their funeral. One, it's more cost effective to do it that way. You're locking in the current rates versus 15, 20 years down the road, what it might be. Again, it also takes some of that burden off of whoever is left behind. And it allows the individual to just be able to, or the individuals left behind, allows them the opportunity to just be able to grieve without the burden of having to make all of these decisions and do all of this planning. So pre-planning is becoming more and more popular. And with that, we need to know, right? We need to know if we did the pre-planning, right? We need to be able to share with somebody what was done. And if we're the one that would be responsible, for maybe a family member, a parent, we need to know where or if they've already done that as well. If somebody was in the military, right? Are there any military honors that they're entitled to or that they would like to have? So all of these considerations, having these discussed or written down in advance, are important. And the nice part about going through this process too is that this isn't something that necessarily, you're not sitting around the Thanksgiving table every year, going around the table and having this conversation. This is really something that can be done, arguably one time. And really, if it's set up properly, it should stand the test of time. And unless somebody wants to make changes as they age and as life goes on, they gladly can. But this isn't something that needs to necessarily be reviewed every 6 months like a financial account would have to. Finally, and I'll say arguably the most important part, is after completion, right? I cannot tell you the amount of times, again, we've met with individuals and they say to me, I know mom had a will. I know dad had some money tucked away in the house, and they can't find the will. They can't find maybe where the money is. Maybe it was behind a picture frame. Maybe it was in a bowl somewhere. It is very, very important that if we're going to put in the time and have the discussion of pre-planning, whomever, at least one individual, if not multiple, every family is going to be different, but somebody needs to then know where these documents are, where they can be found. And sometimes the financial advisor will be the one that'll house a lot of that and be able to facilitate that with the family. Sometimes it's an attorney who would take on that, and other times it's just a family member. But regardless, once this is done, it is very, very important to keep copies. It is very, very important to discuss, at least initially, with family members or a family member or a trusted advisor, what those wishes are, so that you can ensure not only did you take the time to put this together, but that ultimately somebody knows about it and will be able to help facilitate your final wishes. Very heavy topic for a Friday afternoon, but a very important one to periodically discuss and make sure that we're not putting off. With that, it's 12:25. I did leave a few minutes for questions. If anybody does have more generic questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I can read through that. Otherwise, if somebody has more specific questions, one-off questions, would like a one-on-one consultation or would just like to request a copy of the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide, feel free to reach out to me after and we can facilitate that for you as well. So again, I'll hang around for a minute or so. I'll take a look at the chat. And if we have questions from there, I can address them.
Okay, so throw your questions in the chat and we'll give it one more minute for some typing. Otherwise, you can contact Nick directly. Well, Nick.
Perfect. So yep, don't see anything. So I think we are good. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nick. That was obviously very thorough. No questions. Again, if you want the guide or you've any other questions for Nick, just give him a call at that contact information. And again, you will find a recording of the session by next week at Saney's Online. And you can also find their contact information for Nick and his colleagues at Equitable. With that, we'll wrap it up and wish everybody a good weekend. Thank you, Nick. Bye-bye.